Today we're fitting a One Light Clutch to this Husqvarna. The first thing to check before you install your One Light Clutch is that the fluid is the correct fluid, or you have the correct master cylinder for the fluid running in your clutch. So for this we look at the reservoir lid on your standard clutch master cylinder, and you'll see here it's clearly written that this master cylinder runs brake fluid. And we just temporarily mark on the outside of the unit on the reservoir lid whether it is DOT, which is brake fluid, or mineral oil. And to double check, if you remove the reservoir lid and then underneath on the diaphragm, also the fluid type is clearly written in the diaphragm itself. The equipment required today is a screwdriver, an 11mm open end, 2.5mm Allen head, a 5mm Allen head, an 8mm T-bar. We've got a pair of gloves here to protect our hands, and we've got some safety eyewear and some DOT 5.1 in this case, because this is a brake fluid clutch that we're doing. If it was mineral oil, we'd require mineral oil. I like to use a good quality brake fluid, in this case it's a 5.1, and also very important, something to wipe up any spills. We start with removing the standard clutch master cylinder from the motorbike. To do this, we first remove back this rubber boot to expose the nut from the fitting. We then loosen this. Now I like to leave it there until I remove the clutch master cylinder itself. At this point I remove the blanking plug from the Clake One Light Clutch, and we'll use that in the old master cylinder. Okay, so now we remove the standard clutch master cylinder from the handlebar. We take it off the handlebars, and then we've loosened this nut beforehand so it's easy to unscrew. And what we try to do here is not hang the line down. So we're not going to bleed the unit from the bottom, we only want to bleed it from the top. So we just simply place the line so that it doesn't hang downwards and drain. And then we use the blanking plug that was out of the One Light Clutch to seal off the standard clutch master cylinder. Now we install the One Light Clutch onto the handlebar. Now we must make sure that arrow is facing upwards. Now just while we're bleeding it, we're going to temporarily tighten this clamp, not too firmly, in this position. It's really important when we place the unit to have it slightly up from the horizontal. This helps with the bleeding practice. Okay, now we fill the reservoir up of the One Light Clutch. It's a very good idea to wear safety gloves and to put them on right at the start, just to avoid any damage to your skin from the chemicals, either brake fluid or mineral oil. And here we've also got something to wipe up any spills. We're initially priming the cylinder of the One Light Clutch, and to do this we're going to block the port using our finger with our gloves on. And what we do is we pull the lever in to the bars, then place the finger firmly over the port to block it, and then release the lever. And this creates a vacuum, and that will draw in the fluid. So we don't remove our finger immediately, we leave it on there to allow the fluid to get drawn into the cylinder. Now we repeat this procedure, so we pull the lever into the bars. Whoops, now see we have got some fluid coming out there. We block it off to create the vacuum, let it out, and you can see the fluid actually level going down in the master cylinder. Okay, now I'm just going to leave my finger over the port and just pull the lever and feel if I can get any pressure, and yes, I can feel that trying to push against my finger, so I'm just going to do that a little bit. And if you look inside the reservoir, you can actually see those bubbles coming out the ports there? And that's what we want. So we'll just keep working this backwards and forwards and get rid of as much air as we can. The trick with bleeding is to be patient. It's very important to get all the air out of the system, so I'm just going to sit here and work that, and as long as I can see bubbles coming in and out, and I've got my finger firmly over the port, then I'm just going to keep going until all the air's out of it. Okay, so we remove our finger from the port, just wipe up some of those spills so we don't make too much of a mess. Okay, now we install the clutch line into the One Light Clutch. Be very careful at this point to make sure it's going in straight. We just tighten that, bottom that out by hand. And in this case I'm going to remove the One Light Clutch from the handlebar at this point so that I can correctly get the spanner on the original clutch line. It's very important to get this nice and firmly tight so that it's a good seal. Now we're just going to remount the One Light Clutch to the handlebar, and again we're going to have it in a slightly above horizontal position. And now we'll just top up the fluid to make up for the losses from when we primed it. Just careful not to overflow it. To start this stage of the bleeding, it's very important to make sure that the force balance adjuster has some free play. See that little bit of end float in there? Now if we wind it in, without the back pressure, the lever won't return properly and you'll find it very hard to bleed. So what you do is just back it off and you can wobble it in and out just to the point where you see that there's a bit of end float. Don't wind it too far, because if you do, you risk the rod coming out of the unit. And to rectify this, you can tip the unit upside down and then reinstall it if you want, but it's much easier just to make sure you don't unscrew it too far. And what happens if this adjuster does come off, just to show you what's inside so you know what you're doing. What you've got to do is you hold the unit upside down, and then as you push this in, you've just got to be gentle and get that thread started like that. And this also shows you the very fine thread and why it takes so many turns to tension the adjuster. Okay, now what we do is we pull the lever in slowly and then release it fairly quickly. And that tends to drag the air back out near the compensation port, and hopefully it'll come out. And then every so often we just give it a little jiggle around the end point of the lever's travel to try to get the air out. Then we go in slowly, then out quickly. Let it rest for a few seconds, then give it a little bit of a jiggle, and you can see the air coming up through that port there. And now it's very important to be patient at this stage. For the correct operation of the One Light Clutch, you must have all the air out of the system. So just take your time and just work that lever backwards and forwards until you get rid of all the air. As soon as there's no free play in the lever whatsoever, then you'll know it's fully bled. Now the unit's fully bled, we replace it to the horizontal position to return the reservoir lid. Now I place a bit of paper towel around the reservoir so that we can get some of the excess fluid that's going to come out, and then we just return this. Now with these screws, you do them up firmly, but don't over tighten them because they are stainless and stainless steel is soft. Okay, now we wipe up any spills around the reservoir lid and the unit itself. The brake fluid is hydroscopic, which means it absorbs moisture from the air. So always remember to return the lid immediately. Now we're going to position the One Light Clutch. We loosen the handlebar clamp, put it in the position that the rider prefers to operate it in, and then very importantly we tighten the top handlebar clamp bolt up firmly so that it bottoms. Then we tighten the bottom one just enough so that it won't rotate. Personally, I like to put a few drops of Loctite, just low strength Loctite on the bottom bolt, just so that you can not tighten it up too firmly, but it'll still stop the unit rotating on the bars. Now we've got the unit fully bled and mounted on the bars where we want it, we can go through the adjustment procedure. So the first thing is, when you pull the lever now, you'll say, wow, this thing is heavy. It's not doing anything. And the reason why is because there's no force balance applied. And the force balancer knob is just down here, and what you do is you pull the lever to the bars, and then it's easier to turn at the start, and we just wind that. Now this has a very fine thread on it and takes quite a few turns. And when I say quite a few, it could be as many as 50 rotations will be required. So again, be patient. You can't wind this too far, it'll just bottom, so don't worry. And every so often you can have a feel of the lever. Now that's starting to get definitely lighter, but we want it lighter still, so again, we'll just keep turning it. With the One Light, you can position the lever in any position you wish, and you simply do this by loosening this central Allen head screw, and then you just put the lever, see how you can now move that freely and that's not rotating the shaft, and you can put it where you want it, and then you must firmly tighten this central bolt. Okay, now with the One Light Clutch, it's essential that you don't have the lever hitting any part of anything like a handguard, see that where it's hitting? Because that will prevent it returning properly, and eventually the lever will pump down to the bars. So you must allow some clearance. Okay, now we return the rubber boot over the original line, and then we'll use some cable ties to cable tie this wire and also this line in position. And there we have it, all bled up, ready to use. Beautifully light clutch action, and we really hope you guys will enjoy our products as much as we do.